What is the difference between a stop and ID state and a not stop an ID state? Is there such a thing? And are you entitled to a Miranda warning simply by virtue of a police officer detaining you and asking you normal questions on the side of the road? Those are the topics that we're going to explore in this video. Let's talk about it. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Southern Draw Law. My name is James White, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, former police officer. There's no rebuttal for today. Didn't really have anything that was a substantive update that I wanted to throw out there and make an entire episode about, but I do want to throw back to a couple of different questions that I got in the Q&A section and just give you guys something to think about in place of the rebuttal this week. I have had some really interesting questions that have come in as a result of me doing a little Q&A mining in the rebuttal. And unfortunately, a couple of the ways that really it was the way that I released the videos surrounding the breaking Senatobia situation that week. I kind of released the rebuttal, and then the Senatobia video was kind of tangled together, and I wanted to separate them, and it just didn't do very well, and it was because of the way I released it. And unfortunately, what happened was there was a really important question that got buried within a rebuttal episode that really didn't get more than like 12 or 15,000 views. And then that followed another question the following week where only maybe 30 or 40,000 people saw it, that dealt with sort of something that's on the coattails of the cases that we talked about in the first one. And so what I've done to just give you guys some sort of content for today is to stitch those two videos together just with the Q&A section so we can explore those topics together. And we're just going to be discussing concepts and case law. And I kind of just wanted to let you know within this video, we're traveling a little bit in the month of July. We're going down for the 4th of July here with some friends to the Fort Myers area where our friend is having her 50th birthday party. So we're going to be down there for the next several days. And I'm going to be working on some content that I already have in the pipeline. And then later in July, I'm going to the British Virgin Islands for a private sailing trip for about 10 days. And so I'm going to be hit or miss with the rebuttal because it'll just be dependent on what new updates are coming on and then what I'm actually doing and where I'm going to be in the world. But I'm going to try to continue to get out some content for you guys and continue to work on stories that I've already started working on. But I really just wanted to let you know what to expect as far as the rebuttal goes. And then for now, you might be seeing some like clip cuts and things like that from me over the next few weeks, maybe the month of July, just to sort of get some stuff out there for you guys to chew on until I get back to the normal desk and start doing my normal things. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this, and I'll see you when I get back. Question: what is the difference between a stop and ID state and a non-stop and ID state? It is my understanding that both require probable cause to ID. Thanks, take care, and thanks for what you do. So first of all, thank you for sending me that question. It is a very interesting question, and the reason it's a very interesting question primarily is because it's kind of a misnomer. Stop and ID is sort of a misnomer that gets used very fluidly throughout the internet, but specifically on social media. But there really is no such thing as a stop and ID state, because the idea that stop and ID indicates that the police can just stop you and demand your ID for any reason or no reason at all. And that really ended with the first case that sort of lays this out, and that is Brown versus Texas. So what people say when they say, you know, you're in a stop and ID state, they're really referring to a time before Brown versus Texas, because in Brown, what you had was you had a Texas statute that essentially made it a crime for a person not to identify themselves upon lawful request of a police officer. Well, it was unsettled as to what that actually meant. What did it actually mean for a police officer in Texas to make a lawful request for identification? You see, if you look at Terry, all Terry really touched on was whether or not you could stop a person and, because of the facts in Terry, frisk that person without probable cause, with some standard lower than probable cause. It was the introduction of reasonable articulable suspicion to the Fourth Amendment jurisprudence. And we've talked about that at length. So Terry really added a new layer, a lesser standard, right? Well, Brown versus Texas dealt with a situation where, okay, they've stopped this guy and he's refused to identify. And importantly, in the Brown versus Texas case, you had officers from El Paso who admitted that they really had no reason to suspect that he was committing any sort of crime. They just encountered Brown in an alley in El Paso in a high crime area, and they wanted to identify him. And the Texas statute said if an officer lawfully requests your identification, you have to give it, or blah, 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 blah. So the court said, no. Unless the person is suspected of crime, they do not have to identify themselves to the police. Okay, so that kind of killed the whole idea of what we commonly refer to as stop and ID. Now I think that there's a delineation between states that have identification laws and states that don't. So now when somebody says this is not a stop and ID state, it's unclear whether they just don't know that there's no such thing anymore, or whether they're making the argument that this is not a state that has a statute that criminalizes not identifying yourself to the police. But in every circumstance, the officer demanding identification from the person must have reasonable articulable suspicion sufficient to do a Terry detention and a seizure before they can demand identification. Well, that was the standard until 2004 when Hiibel was decided. And Hiibel was a case out of Nevada that was also a SCOTUS case. But the facts in that were that a deputy responded to a call of a man assaulting a woman in Nevada. And so the deputy located Hiibel. Hiibel was the person that was described. And so there really was never an issue as to whether there was enough reasonable articulable suspicion to detain Hiibel. The issue became, okay, Nevada has enacted a statute that not only requires a person to identify themselves if they're lawfully detained, but it spells out criminal penalties for not doing so. And so the issue in Hiibel was, okay, we understand that Terry requires RAS, and then we understand that Brown versus Texas says that you can't compel a person's identification unless you have a lawful Terry detention. But now Hiibel comes along and it stands for the proposition that, yes, and on top of that, the state can actually criminalize and add an additional crime for your failure to adhere to a statute compelling you to identify if you're lawfully detained. And so that's what this is really about. But now what it's sort of evolved into is that we used to have probable cause for an initial seizure. Terry took that away, created the RAS standard. Brown versus Texas created RAS standard for compelling identification. And Hiibel says, yes, on top of that, the state can charge you with a crime for not doing that. And the court said, yeah, that's as long as we have RAS, as long as you're lawfully detained, then you can be punished criminally for not giving your identification under those circumstances. And last week we talked about Brown versus Texas. And then that led to a conversation about Hiibel. And if you remember, that discussion was really about the Fourth Amendment. But Hiibel actually asked not only a Fourth Amendment question, Hiibel asked a Fifth Amendment question. And this week, someone sent me a question about traffic stops and whether or not a person's entitled to a Miranda warning and whether statements can be suppressed. So shout out to my subscriber, William, who asked us the following. If an officer pulls me over and starts asking fishing questions and asks if there are drugs in the car, and I tell him, yeah, I've got 2 pounds of cocaine in the trunk, can that statement be suppressed because I wasn't read my Miranda rights? Now, that is a great question. And the answer, unfortunately, is no. Now, that answer is probably going to feel wrong to a lot of people because we've all grown up hearing the same thing, and that is that you have a right to remain silent on every cop show we've ever watched. And of course, knowing what you know about the law, you know, it's all theatrical and it's all out of place and nothing makes any sense on these cop shows. You know, your right to remain silent, anything you say can and will be used in a court of law. So people assume that before the police can ask you questions, they have to read you Miranda. But that's not actually what Miranda says. And as we've discussed many times on this channel, Miranda only applies when two things are present, and that is custody and interrogation. Now, nobody disputes that asking, do you have drugs in the car, is designed to elicit an incriminating response. That's not really a question that's germane to the normal part of what you're supposed to be uncovering in a traffic stop. It's not a question about your driver's license. It's not a question about your registration or your insurance. It's not officer safety. That question is designed to obtain evidence. And it really is just a question. So the real fight isn't so much the question, it's custody. And that brings us to a Supreme Court case called Berkemer versus McCarty. The facts of this case are pretty straightforward. An Ohio trooper observed a vehicle weaving in and out of its lane. He conducted a traffic stop. He got the driver out of the vehicle, and he began asking questions. Responses to the questions caused him to conduct field sobriety tests, and during the encounter, the driver admitted that he had consumed alcohol and smoked marijuana. He was arrested. Later, he argued that those statements should be suppressed because he had never been read his Miranda rights, and the Supreme Court disagreed. Now, here's where things get a little weird. Because if I asked every single one of you watching this video during a traffic stop, are you free to leave? Everyone would say no. If you leave, you'll get treated like they treat you in Arkansas, and they'll pitch you and roll you over and kill your kids or whatever, right? And you'd be right about that. Under the Fourth Amendment, you've been seized. The officer's activated his lights. You're legally detained. You're absolutely not free to drive away. So obviously, it's not questions. And obviously, it's not just custody because you can't leave. You're detained. But the Supreme Court also says that that does not automatically mean you're in custody for the purposes of a Miranda warning. And that's the distinction that Berkmer actually draws. Because the court says that an ordinary traffic stop is more like a Terry stop than a formal arrest. It's temporary. There's a chance that at the end of it, you're going to be free to go on your way. It's conducted in public. It's usually brief. And because of that, the court concluded that the coercive pressure that Miranda was designed to address are not present in your typical traffic stop, and they weren't present in this case. Now, I think this is where some lawyers oversimplify Miranda, because we get on here and we say, well, in order for Miranda to be triggered, you got custody and you got interrogation. Okay, but what does that actually mean? And I think that shorthand causes us to lose what's really going on. Miranda isn't really about the questions, and it's not really about the custody. It's about the environment shift that causes coercion. The concern isn't that the police are asking questions. The concern is that the government has created an environment so coercive that we no longer trust the person's decision to speak as truly voluntary. So it's a shift in environment that takes away a person's free will. And once I started really thinking about that question, I realized that I think it's something that often gets overlooked. I don't actually think the distinction people are struggling with is whether they're free to leave. And I think it's mostly at the feet of the courts for kind of making that the threshold argument, even though that's really not what's at issue. I think what's really at issue is the shift in environment that forces regular questioning into questions that feel more like interrogations. Just think about it as it relates to just your understanding of ordinary English. If someone questions you, that feels different than someone interrogating you. And the difference is likely the environment, whether you realize it or not, whether you feel a different level of pressure as you're being questioned. And then in the context of a police encounter, the question becomes more, is there a constitutional boundary that gets crossed when the government changes the environment on someone they are questioning in a way that is so coercive it takes away their free will to the extent that we're not sure if they are voluntarily giving their answers? So think about it this way. If I walk up to you and say, man, that's a sweet Porsche. I know where you work, bro. There's no way you got that Porsche without either a trust fund, an inheritance, or you're slinging dope. Any drugs in the car? That's a question. If a police officer asks me the same question in the same way during a traffic stop, that's a very different situation, but that's still not quite what it takes to trigger a Miranda warning. Now, if we arrived at this traffic stop by a cop pointing a gun at me and 5 other cops around the car, and they're all screaming at me and getting me out and handcuffing me, and I'm now sitting in the back of a patrol car after this felony stop, any drugs in the car is a completely different question. And notice that the words never changed. The question never changed. What changed was the environment and the coercive nature of it. And I think that's why the custody analysis often feels unsatisfying to people that are trying to understand it, because most Fifth Amendment cases aren't really exploring whether the person is technically free to leave. They're exploring whether the government has created enough pressure that remaining silent no longer feels like it's a realistic option. So the officer asking whether you have drugs in the car is absolutely trying to obtain incriminating information. Nobody seriously disputes that. But the court simply says that during an ordinary traffic stop, the environment is not coercive enough to require Miranda warnings. And so not only is the statement not going to get suppressed, but you saying there's 2 pounds of coke in my trunk is going to provide probable cause for the search that will ultimately yield that evidence, and you're going to be stuck with it. Now, whether you agree with that distinction is a different question, because if you're sitting on the side of the road with blue lights behind you and a gun on an officer's hip and an officer's asking you whether you got drugs in the car, most ordinary people would say, this feels pretty coercive. But the Supreme Court's response in Berkmer is essentially that maybe it is, but it's not coercive enough. Anyway, that's the Q&A for today. I hope you guys got something from it. Send me some more questions. Let's keep this ball rolling. We're having a lot of fun. This is probably the way that I will lead into a series about the nuance of the Fifth Amendment, the difference between testimonial evidence and non-testimonial evidence, and all that stuff that's going to make your all's head explode when I give you the contradictory information that the courts put out about all of this stuff. Anyway, that's all I have for now, guys. Hope you got something. Hope you enjoyed the Q&A session. I'd like to invite you to check us out on all the socials. I'll put up a QR code here for you to scan with your phone. That'll take you to the Linktree site where you can check us out on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Substack. I hope to see you on one of those platforms in the very near future. Please remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment on the video. Check out some of the other videos on the channel. Leave a comment on there as well. Until I see you again, take care. Always film your interactions with the police and keep your evidence to yourself.